What's the scariest place you can imagine visiting on a dark, stormy Halloween night? A haunted house? A creepy cemetery? What about a haunted castle? Another staple of horror, a classic setting, and a favorite of Saturday morning cartoons. Many of our favorite cartoon characters have visited such spooky castles, so we don't have to, and their experiences in these places were all various degrees of harrowing. Even if many of these castles have long been abandoned, countless ghosts, spirits, and specters still lurk within its walls, while many castles are still occupied by their dreadful owners, be they vampires, monsters, mad scientists, or maybe all of them at once. You're watching Toon Raider, and today we are recapping some of the most memorable visits to spooky haunted castles ever seen in Saturday morning cartoons. Haunted castles have a long history in fiction, going back to Bram Stoker's Dracula, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and beyond, many of which were based on real-life examples. In visual media, the haunted castle trope is as old as film itself, with examples to be found as way back as the late 19th century. In animation, one of the earliest examples of a haunted castle being used as a setting for a horror story came in 1931 in the first film in Van Buren's Tom and Jerry series, later reissued as Dick and Larry, in the episode entitled What a Night, and what a night it was. Tom and Jerry are taxi drivers who drive a suspicious-looking set of identical twins to a spooky castle on a rainy night, and when the duo aren't paid for their services, Tom and Jerry follow the twins into the castle, where they are met with a series of truly bizarre spectacles around every corner. The taller character Tom is a nervous wreck compared to the calm yet intrigued Jerry, but eventually both are equally spooked by the never-ending series of paranormal activities that haunt the castle. Take it from Tom, this episode is not for the faint of heart. The cat and mouse duo of Tom and Jerry have visited their fair share of haunted castles over the years, the first coming in 1961 in the episode Switch and Kitten, the first of 13 episodes directed by Gene Deitch. In this episode, we find Jerry playing the role of assistant to a mad scientist who is experimenting on animals in his laboratory located in the dungeons of a dark castle, and who manages to switch the brains or the instincts of a cat and dog. Tom Cat wanders into the castle seeking shelter on a stormy night and is dismayed to find a cat behaving like a dog and protecting a mouse which he should be eating. Chase scenes take place throughout the castle, which give us first-hand tours of various rooms, including the laboratory and an elaborate library. Probably my favorite thing about these Gene Deitch Tom and Jerry shorts were the background art, which is particularly striking in this episode, including the bright red night skies which glow ever brighter as Tom's situation grows ever more perilous. I've already featured this next cartoon in a previous video on creepy black and white cartoons, the 1933 Mickey Mouse cartoon The Mad Doctor, which incidentally entered the public domain earlier this year, and it seems appropriate to feature it again in today's list of cartoon haunted castles. The Mad Doctor has kidnapped Pluto, who is to be victim of a grisly experiment, and it's up to Mickey to rescue his dog from the clutches of the sadistic scientist. But the real star of this nightmarish cartoon is the castle itself, depicted in dark, shadowy ink washes, as impactful as the best live-action horror films of the time. The Mad Doctor's lair is a particularly memorable dark gothic castle situated atop a wave-lashed, skull-shaped rock in the depths of the wasteland, while the interior is laden with booby traps, hidden corridors, and a host of animated skeletons and other demonic creepy crawlies. Another memorable dark castle was featured in the 1963 Merrie Melodies classic Transylvania 65000, starring Bugs Bunny and directed by Chuck Jones, the last Bugs Bunny cartoon directed by Jones. Bugs Bunny is trying to find his way to Pittsburgh, but gets lost after mistaking Transylvania for Pennsylvania, and then makes his second mistake by getting directions from Agatha and Emily Vulture, who lead him to Count Bloodcount's castle, which Bugs mistakes for a motel. Count Bloodcount invites him in and plays along in pretending his residence is a motel, but his nefarious plans are cut short after Bugs browses through the library of blood-related reading material and fishes out a book on magical incantations, which end up turning the Count into a variety of different creatures. The Transylvanian castle is reminiscent of Dracula's castle and seems to be totally uninhabited except for the shadowy vampire, and portraits on the wall suggest a long lineage of vampires have inhabited the castle. As with all my horror-themed cartoon lists, this one wouldn't be complete without a Scooby-Doo haunted castle, and so with that in mind, we're featuring Vasquez Castle, as seen in the Scooby-Doo Where Are You episode, Hassle in the Castle. After getting lost in the fog and running aground, the gang arrive on Haunted Isle, where they stumble across an old abandoned castle, Vasquez Castle, so named after being used as the hideout of Vasquez the Pirate in 1612, and which now seems to be haunted by a shadowy figure known as the Phantom. The old castle is deserted and dilapidated after years of neglect, but memories of its past remain inside, such as a suit of armor, furniture, a library filled with books, as well as a painting of Vasquez the Pirate, while Vasquez Castle is still riddled with functioning booby traps. A particular highlight is the basement of the castle, a mysterious room which also includes an assortment of magic show items, which helps the gang solve the mystery. In typical Scooby-Doo fashion, most of the haunting was done by Bluestone the Great, an ex-magician wanted in 6 states, who took the guise of the Phantom while on Haunted Isle to find and steal a supposed treasure buried there. What is mysterious is that certain things like the infamous talking skull and the floating ham sandwich and mustard sauce can't be explained so easily, heavily implying that the castle might really be haunted. Do you guys remember the funky Phantom? We are visiting a castle featured in the 1971 episode I'll Haunt You Later, which sees Mudsy and the gang coming across an abandoned truck in the middle of a swamp, and their search for the owner of the truck leads them to Fort Lafitte, a spooky castle reportedly haunted by the ghost of Johan Peewit, a real-life pirate who operated in the Gulf of Mexico in the 19th century and who became known as the Terror of the Gulf. As the gang split up in search of the driver, they are plagued by tricks and traps and pranks at the hands of the pirate ghost, before the discovery of a hidden treasure sheds some light on the mystery of Fort Lafitte. The pirate ghost turns out to be a human in disguise, and ironically, the castle wasn't haunted until Mudsy the Funky Phantom and the rest of the gang pitched up, since Mudsy himself is a ghost and ends up terrorizing the human inhabitants of the castle. And finally, Johan Peewit was a series of episodes that appeared in seasons 2 and 3 of the 1980s Smurf series, where the main characters are Sir Johan Peewit, with the Smurfs as supporting characters, and which took place in medieval Europe. The episode The Haunted Castle sees Johan Peewit getting lost and wandering into a seemingly abandoned castle, where they are joined by the Smurfs, before everyone realizes that the castle is indeed haunted by the ghost of Aldebert Beaufort. He explains that he once ruled this magnificent castle, but made an enemy of Sarah the sorceress, who cast a spell which dried up the 7 fountains which brought water to the land, and the resultant drought forced the subjects to leave the kingdom. Beaufort's ancestors blamed him for the disaster and decided that he must haunt the castle until the 7 fountains flowed again. It's up to Johan, Peewit and the Smurfs to reverse the curse, or Beaufort is doomed to haunt the castle forever. I hope you enjoyed today's tour of spooky haunted castles seen in Saturday morning cartoons, a topic requested by you, the viewer, so please keep those requests coming in. A popular location was Dracula's castle, which has been visited by many cartoons over the years, so many in fact that Dracula's castle deserves its own video in the near future. Let us know in the comments what other haunted castles you remember from Saturday morning cartoons, and more importantly, do you believe in ghosts? Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and share this video with your friends in the spirit of Halloween. I'll be back with another video shortly, so until then remember to subscribe and hit the bell notification to stay tuned for more cartoon history.